Okay, welcome to another episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Dai-shihan Miller here from Warrior Concepts. You probably already know that, but if you're just finding this for the first time, recording, live, whatever, this is something we do every Wednesday, barring, I don't know, family emergencies, shit going on in the world, major holidays, those kind of things. So we do this every Wednesday, and this is designed to be a tactical and strategic approach to the training. So while we will be discussing and making reference to specific kata techniques, those kind of things, this is not about any given technique or whatever. And I will not be a dancing monkey. I may, kind of shadow box something or whatever, but this is not a Taiden teaching kind of thing. This falls into the realm of Kuden, the knowledge, the Seishin area of our training. And again, you don't have to be a Nijutsu student. You don't have to be part of the Bujinkan, Jirinkan, Genbukan, Kan, whatever. You don't have to be a part of any of those things to get benefits from this. But if you did come to this or clicked on this because you were just, I don't know, looking for more techniques to entertain you during the day and avoid work or whatever, not the place. You're going to get bored quickly. And so probably just best to just go now. Okay. Anyway, all right. So during today's training, we're going to take a look at. I'm going to focus on one of our specific kata, but we're going to take a look at our fundamental models, known generally to most people as the Kihon Happo. Right now, this is something that is a Gyoko-ryu, Gyoko school kind of a. It's not just a principle, but it's a place to start. They had this thing, although the Kihon Happo doesn't have, in the Gyoko-ryu, it doesn't have just 8 techniques, right? That what most people know today is a hybrid model between a couple of lineages. So don't get all freaked out on different things, right? But more specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at one of the hidden aspects, the ura, right? The hidden side, the backside, the less obvious side within them that, quite frankly, far too many people miss, right? And so, again, we're focusing on strategies and tactics in this lesson, so not specific techniques. Although I will be talking about a technique, probably best if you already know it. And I'll repeat this again at the end. This is at least an intermediate, upper intermediate to advanced level concept. Based on how I'm presenting this, you really do need to have a handle on the models or whatever, okay? So again, we're looking at the ura of your Kihon Happo models. And I push to the Gyoko-ryu, but that doesn't mean that the other lineages don't have Kihon or fundamental or techniques or skills that form the basis of what they're doing. They just didn't catalog it, okay? So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist, okay? For the purist who, if it's not written down, I'm not believing in it. Anyway, all right. So, again, for everyone else, right? If you haven't already clicked off or I picked your interest and you want to stay with things, that's fine. I'll assume that we all know why we're here as far as lesson wise. But again, warning: this one is it's not for the newbies. All right. Okay, so before we jump into the lessons, I'm going to give you today, don't forget, like, share, subscribe. It really helps us out. It helps to program the platform's algorithms, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever. And not only does it help us get a little better ranking and things, but it also tells or informs the algorithms, right? These computer programs that keep track of all of our stuff, right? Decisions and whatnot, to inform them as to who finds this valuable, right? And believe it or not, they've got tons of information about all of us. So what that does is it helps them to put this out in front of other people who are more like us, who are looking for more than just some punches, blocks, and kicks, and are looking for the strategic and tactical application of this stuff that is really, really important, right? To give us that advantage. Right. So if you can help me do that, that's great. Right. That being said, right, please remember that anything I teach, I just did an introduction to defensive combat handgun this past Saturday, I think it was then, and I opened it up the way one of my teachers used to open up seminars. And what he would say is, everything I'm about to teach you is crap. And then he would pause just like that, right? Let that sink in a little bit. That doesn't mean that it doesn't work. What it means is it works for me. It works for many of my students. But until you take it and execute on it, and not just memorize it or let this collect cyber dust on a hard drive or a device somewhere, and you make it work for you, it has about the same value as crap. But see, I think shit has more value because you can at least use it as fertilizer, right? So be careful, okay? And again, it's presented based on my, when did I get started? 1980. So what we're looking at 44 years of training just in ninjutsu, and then a bunch of years in other martial arts behind that. Actual real world experience of using this stuff, these techniques. Can't tell you the number of times I whipped a mushadori on somebody or whatever. And we're talking about, you know, the bad guys on the street. Okay, I started out as an Army cop and did a whole lot of counterterrorism stuff. And both military guys who are in effect trained killers and terrorists and whatnot, they don't go easily. Okay, it's not the same as a fight in a ring, right? Anyway, enough about me. So again, like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. All right, so let me tell you a quick story here to kind of set things up. Very often during my trips to Japan, or even early days before he shut the whole thing down, Hatsumi Sensei, whether he was doing a Taikai here in this country or wherever they happen to be, but the stories that kind of stick in my head at the moment are in Hombu Dojo in Japan. And so every once in a while, right, we would flip, right, from him demonstrating possibilities or potentials in defending against a certain type of attack or this kata or whatever that we were working on, and he would kind of switch gears, and without telling us, he would like shove his arm out there or whatever for the attack, and then his uke would do the uke nagash or start to do that evasion or whatever, and then he would counter that move, okay, just like out of nowhere, right? And it could be there, it could be some other part, whatever, right? But he turned around to show how to break the technique, right? Now this has implications on a whole bunch of levels. But again, we had just been working on and trying to learn a given technique, a given model, kata, whether it was official, unofficial, or whatever. And then all of a sudden, like I said, he would flip it for just a minute, for just a time or two. He would show how to defend against an uke nagash or counter a certain evasive movement or whatever, right? And this is something I think students miss, and they may not miss that thing that we worked on, they jot it in their notes, or it's in, you know, the memory banks or whatever. But what I think is missed is that this is an example of something bigger. Okay, so what's the bigger? Well, let me tell you another story. Okay, when I was in the Hayes camp, right, I was Sensei Hayes in the Shadows of Iga, which then became Toshindo. Did we change it to something else? I don't know. Anyway, long time ago. So training for black belts would often take the same kata or other kata, right? And so we would have to know it, or we would learn it, right? You know, ugari, or pick one, right? Kasasagi, any of these things, right? And so we'd work on this, and then, or we would have worked on it previously, and then what we end up doing is we start trading off, kind of a playing the devil's advocate kind of thing. And we start trading off where the first time we do it, we do the whole kata, right? Defender wins, okay? And we'll talk about this glitch in the matrix. It's not really a glitch, but there's a lot of assumptions behind it that we have to drop if we're going to get to way higher levels, okay? We're gonna break free of just being able to do the stuff faster, better, smoother, whatever, and we're going to break through to reality, okay? And so I'll talk about that here in just a minute. But so the defender would win, right? And then he would show a demonstration of something that we would be working on, where at a certain point in the kata, usually very early on, right, the uke would counter the Tori's attempt to defend. He would counter that and then deliver their thing, and so they would win, right? And then we would take a look at doing it again. And so the uke counters, so that the attacker, right? I'll talk about that in a minute as well. The attacker counters the defender's move and goes to do their counter attack, and the defender counters that and delivers their part, right? And sometimes it deviated a little bit from the kata, and sometimes it was like spot on. You just came right back on track. But either way, right? So again, this time the defender wins. So first time defender, second time attacker, third time defender, right? And we could go on a couple of times with this, but eventually, you know, you get to this point where the defender is learning how to counter the attacker's counters to it in their attempt to prevent you from doing your next move, right? I mean, they're a living being. They're not a freaking moron that, hey, 2 minutes, I'm coming. And then they're going to, you know, come across the street and they're an easy kill, right? I mean, we're all easy to kill. However, the training is supposed to make us harder to kill. We just have to be careful because ego and our assumptions can negate years of training, okay? So anyway, the point here is that at one level of training, and this is one hidden aspect. It's not the one I'm going to deal with today, but I need to highlight this piece. The hidden aspect is that whoever's doing the most right things at the right times and the least amount of wrong things or mistakes at the wrong times, universal justice says that person's going to win, right? And we like to believe that other things are going on, and I'll get around to these things, but the reality is that the universe doesn't give a shit one way or the other how you think, how you act, or whatever. What we're governed by is the law of karma, the law of cause and effect. Don't translate karma some other way. In Sanskrit, karma simply means action. Okay, that's it, and it implies cause and effect. Shrey Sensei in Japan, one of the senior master teachers, always says, good action do, good situation make. Bad action do, bad situation make. It's the same stuff, right? I know it's bad English syntax, but he's Japanese. So anyway, but this points to this idea that there's this give and take. I want to take this farther today and take a look at a hidden aspect. It's kind of related, but you'll see what I mean here in a minute, okay? So again, we had this give and take kind of thing where we were practicing not just how to do the kata, but how to beat every point of the kata. But then if the attacker, if the uke, learns effective, efficient taijutsu-based ways to break the kata, to make it fall apart, so they can win, what does that do? That makes the defender have to jack up their skill set so they can counter the counter. And then the partner who's playing the role of the uke has to jack up their skill set so they can counter the counter to the counter, and they can counter that, right? So it just keeps going back and forth, because that's if you've ever been in a fight, or you've ever been actually brutally attacked by somebody. I don't mean you've decided to meet somebody, you know, out in the parking lot of the bar or high school or whatever. I'm not talking about that, okay? That's bad enough. I'm talking about somebody just jumping you with the intent to kill you, okay? Shit happens all the time. I remember trying to apprehend somebody one time. I was a military cop, and he'd done something really, really simple and stupid. Like, he stole a radio. I mean, for God's sake, you're in the frickin' army, for God's sake. How far can you go? And a radio? Seriously? Right? And so he ran, right? I was in South Korea, chased this guy across a rice paddy, right? Learned to use your yokoruki for what it was designed for, to go across those mounds really, really quickly. Anyway, so, but in the tussle of me trying to maneuver this guy and get him into a search position, he drew my 45. That's old days. I'm old, right? Drew my 45, and we're wrestling over this thing, and he shoved it at my head and pulled the trigger, right? And had it not been for this kind of thing, right, and then me being able to operate within the bang, right, to get him into a better position, obviously, I'm still here and still have both sides of my skull. Right? But to my best estimation, It missed me by about a finger's width. Okay, and if you know how big diameter a 45 caliber bullet is, that's saying a lot. Anyway, so shit can change really, really fast, and no matter how good your skills are, again, there's always another level. Okay, Hatsumi Sensei has proven that to me again and again and again over the decades. Okay, every time I think, okay, this is where he is, he's the master, that kind of thing. Next year I go back and wow, he's trimmed extra movements, he's doing less but producing more. Wow. Okay, so anyway, so it can be difficult to catch up. Anyway, all right, so what all of this is pointing to is that students can tend to get so focused on learning any given technique or their techniques or the techniques necessary for rank or whatever, right? That they forget some really important points. And so what I want to do is I want to kind of outline some of these important points, right? And I'm going to hold my notes so I don't forget any of them, right? But we need to remember this, okay? Especially, and again, I posted something, was it yesterday, day before, on social media. I made up a meme that had to do with like right speech, but this has to do with right thought as well, okay? The way we define anything not only customizes and tailors our training to that thing because there's a path to that goal, but it also creates a limitation, okay? And so if we're not careful, we can be going through the motions, and it's not that we're not learning, right? But things can be off, right? So what I said was, and I think I said it in another meme as well, that there's certain things that we need to focus on, right? There's interactions, and there's different personality types and all kinds of things, right? To lay it out. But I ended it with, now this is presuming that your focus is on real world self-defense and survival. If it's not, ignore everything that came before this and everything that's in the meme. Okay? If you're training for rank, and that's it, that you're learning things so that you can get that next belt color, right? And I know we like to tell ourselves that it's for self-defense, but it's really easy for a teacher who's been around for a while to see what somebody's primary motivation is, okay? Because of the way they ask questions, because of the way they do things, right? But if it's because you're all jazzed about like ancient warriorship stuff, or you're all jazzed about Japanese culture and this particular aspect of Japanese culture, that's great. You can train for whatever reason you want. We can all do that, right? Ultimately, we will all do what we individually will do. Okay? We're driven by our motivations. We like to think that it's logical, but logic kind of justifies that feeling and drive. So, and that's not a me opinion. That's science proving this stuff these days. All right. So anyway, all right. Let's take a look at some really important points about kata, about any given technique. And this could be a formal kata with a name, right? Seon, Tangeki, Shiaku, whatever, right? Or it could be a henka of that thing, or it could be just a model that the teacher made up to convey how to string basics, whatever the thing is that you're working with, okay? We need to remember these things, right? One, okay, the model, right? I should probably put some space in here, writing like my 5-year-old grandson. A model, kata, whatever, okay, is not the fight. People like to hold kata as being sacrosanct. You know what that means? It's sacred, right? Don't fuck with it. There's only one right way to do it. And see, that's a samurai karate kind of idea. And even karate folks had to come up with this idea of bunkai, which is how to take that form that can't be messed with and dive into it and find the principles and applications for today's world, right? So, but one of the first things I was introduced to is that the model is an introduction. It's an indicator as to where you start. It's like a delivery van coming to your house with something you purchased and it's being dropped off, right? It's the vehicle that's carrying the lessons, okay? But either that, a model is just that, right? It's not the fight. Just like the dojo is not the fight environment, but people get really, really used to training in open space and whatnot. Okay, another little story. A bunch of years ago, Hatsumi Sensei obviously was still teaching, and we had this weekend. Actually, it was like more like a week long, but it was a celebration or a big kind of memorial kind of thing wrapped around Takamasa Sensei's death. It was an anniversary kind of thing, and like people came from all over the freaking place, right? And so, if you've ever been to Hombu, it was bad enough in the original school because the entryway wasn't that big. In the new Hombu, the entryway was made bigger, which actually made the training area a little bit smaller. But lots more cubicles for people to store their training bags, all that kind of stuff, right? But the training bags, like there was only a path that you could barely get through to get into the dojo itself, right? To bow in and do things, okay? All the cubicles were filled. There was like double packed, bags on the floor stacked up, blocking everybody else's stuff. And then against the walls, 3-4 training bags deep, 5 feet high, right? Maybe a little extra in some places, right? That's how many people we had there. There were so many people that they made like a small path right out from the kamiza, right? Maybe, I don't know, just, what is that? 4 feet, 4.5 feet, something like that, right? Imperial, do your conversion. They're metric guys, okay? And maybe, I don't know, maybe like an 8-foot run, give or take, so that whoever was teaching the technique could demonstrate in there, right? And the seniors kind of kept people from encroaching on that area. Well, that's all wonderful, but some of the instructors, some of the senior teachers that Hatsumi Sensei had called out to demonstrate techniques forgot that they had all that space. But when we got up to practice, we were like trying to defend against our partner while other people were bumping into us all over the place. There was no space, zero. And at one point, my partner and I were over near one of the walls. So the kamiza would have been on the wall, the adjacent wall behind us. And so we're over here looking out from the kamiza just like this side, right? So we're over here. And there was this black belt. I know one of these guys that, you know, beat the hell out of his belt with a stone or something to make it look. Note to everybody who does that shit, nobody's fooled by it because belts don't wear that way. Sorry, right? So anyway, but he was there with one of his students, and he and the student were literally parallel to the wall. They were right up against the wall. We were right there next to him, okay? There was somebody behind him, whatever. And every time he tried to avoid a punch, he was overstepping. He didn't have that much room. And so he's bumping, and every once in a while, he would push my training partner or push me and make some kind of statement about, give us some fucking room. And at one point, my patience diminished just enough to look at him and say, are you aware of your surroundings? You don't get any more room than anybody else has. There is no room to be had. This is now an opportunity for you to try to figure out how to do your stuff and still look like a master with no space at all. Okay? Of course, he got pissed off and took his training partner and moved and all that, which didn't give us any extra space because as soon as me and my training partner moved over to the wall, guess what? The sea of people moved in. Okay? So if we were in the States, we would have majorly violated fire codes. Okay? However, right, but there were people that were training in the dojo. There were people that were training in that little path between all the training bags, and there was a couple of dozen people training outside the dojo. So when we got all called back to demonstrate to see something else, they all had to like rush in, and, you know, drop shoes, all that kind of stuff to not miss the lesson. Okay, so we have to be careful. Okay, so I'm not writing that one up there. I'm just sticking with the kata. Okay, so the kata is a model. It's not the fight. All right. I already alluded to this, right? This kind of training is not about kata collecting. It's not, right? You can start with one kata, and if you understand the Kihon Happo principle, not the 8 models, the Kihon Happo principle, and the idea of true henka, right? You'll have couple hundred techniques in no time at all. but it's not about kata collecting. It's not about how many you know. It's eventually, can you use what that kata is teaching, or any given kata is teaching, right? And again, I'm going to start with one today. I'm going to start with Ichimon's no kata. That's it, because that's what we have time for, okay? And the first thing we need to break from this is that, one, Ichimon's no kata is an example for how to use Ichimon's no kamae effectively in a fight, using the principle of kamae first, kamae last, kamae always. Okay, you never leave kamae. Right. So how do I effectively use that? And things that were put in the initial stages for a student back in the day. Everybody that came into the damn dojo, if they weren't already part of that family, literally the family, they already had what they called skeletons in the closet, or heads in the closet. Okay, which means they'd already killed people. They were already accomplished fighters. So they're getting involved in this training to learn more. So Ichimon's no kata is a quick kill. It's an ideal, right? Quick kill, right? Neutralize, unbalance. This shot to uko right here is a kill shot, right? Which is why everybody should be careful when they're doing things, because if you have to do something faster or harder, then this is not you. I'm using you as a third person because we're all enlightened, right? Okay? But if somebody has to do, you put more strength in or more speed in or whatever, then they don't understand the technique, right? Their tactics and strategies and their understanding of the principles and concepts. One of my teachers, who was a former Marine, used to say, sucks. Okay? Shit. All right. So number 3. Okay. I'm just going to paraphrase here. No technique ever, right? There has never been a statement or implication. It's never been implied or actually literally stated by Hatsumi Sensei, any of the senior master teachers, or anybody who knows what's going on in this friggin' art. I can't say that there aren't other teachers out there in the world that these words come out of, but never out of Hatsumi Sensei's mouth, out of any of the writings by Takamatsu, right? And I know they use words like invincibility and whatnot, but that's us in general. But ultimately, we're still going to die, right? I mean, even if nobody kills you, you're still heading toward that, whatever, right? But no technique ever is unbeatable. All right, we need to get that shit out of our head, okay? No technique is unbeatable. All right. Number 4, you have to do more than know each move in a kata or fight. You have to earn. You have to earn every move. Every piece of a kata has to be earned. Okay. I know we learn it and it looks like an ideal, and it's like he throws this and I whoop his ass and it's all good. And okay. But the only person in this world that's going to let you do those things to them, whip a mushadori, onikudaki, whatever, Ichimon's no kata, that is going to let you hit them with that shuto or whatever, is your training partner at certain stages in your training, because they're there to help. The word uke means receiver, and it implies the one who's receiving the technique. See, another hidden aspect of the kata is that the uke is supposed to be paying attention to all these things that are happening to them, so they can understand what's happening to and within the attacker's mind and body and spirit when they apply the technique to them. But I see way too many uke sticking something out there, letting their partner do whatever to them. They'll do a break fall, but they're waiting for their turn. It's just your damn turn. It's your turn to learn the parts of the kata, or learn what each move does. Right? So if your partner makes a mistake or whatever, you know what that feels like, and you know why it's a mistake, because you can get out, right? It doesn't control you, it doesn't break your balance, it doesn't drop you, it doesn't lock up your body, any of that stuff, okay? So, because in an actual fight, an actual attack situation, okay, somebody with murderous intent, okay, nobody's going to help you up off the ground, nobody's going to pull the punch for you, all that kind of stuff. And everything I try to do, from uke nagash to the final shot to moving away, all that, I have to earn it, because he's going to consciously or unconsciously try to block, evade, resist, all that. Okay? Nobody's gonna let you do this stuff except your training partner. Okay, so don't let that form a or create a false sense of confidence. Okay, let's see. The kata is a snapshot of a moment in time, right? I know we don't tend to use this term anymore because cameras don't work the same way. And snapshot, the word snap came because there was this audible click mechanically in these cameras when you were taking a photograph, when you were getting a shot, right? So a snapshot, right, is a moment in time. It's a picture, right? So anything, you know, all the photos, not counting screenshots, but all the things we've taken with our camera that are in our phone, right? Okay, and again, static pictures, but it's a snapshot in time within a fight. Could it be the whole fight? Yeah, I freaking hope so, right? But the implication is that something came before it, and if this gets screwed up, something's going to come after it. It has to. Okay. So what the kata is showing, because you have to remember that when they wrote the scrolls and they wrote the densho, ink was at a premium and paper was at a premium. Paper was expensive, generally speaking. Somebody else made it. Okay. They were an artisan. It was really expensive, right? So you don't waste paper. And ink, generally back in the day, you made it yourself. Okay. If you ever get one of these show calligraphy kits that has brushes in it, and there's a couple of empty bowls that people are like, what the hell is that for, right? And then there's this big black slate looking kind of thing, and there's this really ornate, pretty onyx looking kind of stick. Might have a dragon wrapped around it or some kanji or whatever. That's a soot stick, right? So one of the bowls holds water, and we spoon water over into that pestle, right? You know, mortar and pestle, right? Okay. For grinding things, well, that's the old school way of doing that. You put that water in there, and then the soot stick is stirred around and ground down and mixed with that water, and you keep making more, right? It takes a long time to get a small amount of ink, okay? So everything in the densho, everything in the scrolls is paraphrased. It's shortened because it's only supposed to be a reminder to the student who receives the scrolls, because the teacher already, through Taiden, Shinden, and Kuden, right, passed on this stuff. So it's just shorthand reminders. Okay, so we have to be careful, right? But the kata is a snapshot. So where it says uke tsuki, uke erijime, whatever, or grabbing the lapels or whatever, right? That's just that point in time. So it shows at that moment in time, the Tori, the defender, right, has an opportunity. Their body is on balance and they're free to move. They're not caught off guard, whatever. And their mind is in the moment where they catch it. Hands are in the right place to do the first move that's shown, and then it carries on from there. Okay. But again, here's one of those, there's no statement or implication that kata is the whole fight. It's not. It's a snapshot in time. Okay. So the uke does something, and the Tori does this response, and we slap a name on it, right? And therein lies one of the problems that people have, right? Because now this thing becomes sacred, right? Okay. So anyway, let's see. Moving on. There are two sides to the kata. Two sides to every kata, and I don't mean left side, right side. Right? You could look at that because you should be able to do all your kata both sides. You should be able to do every skill both sides to the same proficiency level. I got this sensei in Japan. He was doing a class on this stuff, and he said, "What's the litmus test?" He said, "Way too many of you train favoring your strong side, favoring your good side. Ninja can't have good sides. Right? You need to be able to do it on both sides because one, you never know where the attacker's coming from or what it's going to look like. So you may have to do things starting off with your so-called weak side, but hopefully we don't get there, right? And if you're attacked by anybody that knows you and has known you for a significant amount of time, especially in the martial realm, they already know what your strong side is and your weak side. So I would force them to have to fight me with their weak side. It already puts them at a disadvantage, right? And no matter how much they try to steer around in the other direction, it's not going to work. So then he asked a question. The question was, how do you know that both sides are equal? Because, you know, ego likes to cover things up, even make us ignore the fact that we got problems over here. As long as nobody points it out, we don't have to get pissed off at them and defensive because our facade got broken. But the answer to how do we know is that a master teacher who knows what they're looking for can look at you doing your stuff from across the room and not be able to tell which is your strong side and your weak side. I know that's a hard litmus test, right? We can't just come up with the belief ourselves, right? So for all the people that think that a teacher is not necessary, right? They'll just learn it for themselves. There's how many of these things already have we pointed out that might have been like a light bulb moment, okay? So there are two sides to the kata. There's the attack and there's the defense. We get that, right? So there's the attack and there's the defense. Don't worry, this is getting deeper because this looks like it's just obvious. Well, duh. He throws the attack, I do the defense, okay? Yeah, okay, right? So the kata, the way it's laid out, can be taken to imply that the Tori, right, is the defender. What that means is we assume that the person doing the model is the good guy. Okay? There's an assumption. Right? The defender is the good guy. There's nothing in writing that says that. Okay? Now, on the omote side of training, you'd see me writing different stuff down here. Okay? Because as people with high integrity, from a warrior mindset, not a fighter mindset, from a warrior protector perspective on the world, I don't go around just attacking people. I don't go around mugging people, throwing shit at people, whatever. And that includes words, right? So on the omote side, it's, you know, of course, right? Lower level rank stuff as people are growing up, where they're trying to learn the techniques. Absolutely, right? I'm not out there attacking people in the world, right? I don't even get involved in competitive fights because I'm not willing to do this shit to another human being unless I need to stop that person from doing evil in the world, right? And that's what Hasumi Sensei is always taught, right? Not teaching you how to fight. What I'm teaching you how to do is to control evil. Okay? I know it sounds all woo-woo, especially to egos that just want to be the top guy in the neighborhood, right? But ninjutsu is people don't even know that you do what you do. Right? So the assumption is that the defender is the good guy, right? So, but the kata says nothing about who's the good guy, bad guy, right? Kata, I already said that, right? So the kata doesn't say this. Does it? It says the uke does this thing, the Tori does A, B, C, D, whatever. Okay? So Tori, person doing the technique, right? Uke, person receiving the technique. At a certain point in training, we drop the designation of uke and replace it with teki. Okay? Teki is an attacker. Okay? And a teki, now when your training partner's designation goes from uke, where he's giving you what you need so you can practice the technique, and he's going to practice break falls and receiving and all that kind of stuff. He's learning that other side of the technique, right? At a certain point, that's going to shift, and he's going to become teki. And now his job is to make you earn every move in that kata, because you don't know it unless you know how to counter his attempts to shut it down. Okay? Just like Hasumi Sensei's always said, you haven't mastered any weapon, right? And kata are weapons. Kamae are weapons, right? You haven't mastered the weapon because you learned how to use it. That's only half of it. You haven't mastered the weapon until you've also learned how to defend against it. Right? This shit's not easy, right? So keep continuing on down that rabbit hole, right? That was number 8, right? Number 9. So the kata starts at a specific point in time, right? Within a fight exchange and leads to a conclusion, right? So we get this, right? So it's related to this one up here, right? So it has a specific start and end point. please don't forget these other points. It doesn't identify good guy or bad guy. Right? Anything we think about good guy or bad guy, we assumed. Right? Again, it implies, but that's the omote side of training. We're over here. Right? We're over here. Okay? So there's a backwards part to this, right? And then finally, if the uke were the good guy, if the uke were the good guy, like us, if we were the good guy, right, then the kata then becomes a model. It's showing us multiple points where we would need certain skills to neutralize the counter, every move that he's using on us, okay? And if we miss one, well, hopefully, right, we'd have the opportunity to catch the next one, okay? In Shinden Furoryu, right, I think I learned this with the kata Nichigeki, I think, right? In the Shinden Furoryu, they tend to not lead with henka. Not that you can't use the word, but every kata, as I learned it, has 3, sometimes 4 waza, okay? And so what that is it's all wrapped around principles and concepts, okay? So henka tend to be variations on the movements, right? So instead of punching him in the face, I hit him in the koi, right, the hip fold or whatever. Either way, it drops him the same way, moves him into the same point where I can, that kind of thing, right? But in Shinden Furoryu, what you have to convey the principles is the waza are models that look usually very different from the base model, and you're supposed to be able to recognize that looks different, it's different moves, but the principles, the concept for controlling this guy is the exact same, which is why all these variations, these waza, get to have the name Nichigeki, or in Kotoryu, Shihaku, Tangeki, Seion, whatever, okay? So I don't think Seion's Kotoryu. Anyway, so I think it's Nichigeki. Again, I don't have these things memorized. And in all honesty, as long as we're on the same sheet of music in the dojo, I don't care if you call the technique Ralph or Sue Ellen or whatever. I don't care. Okay. But in this one, you have this throw counter. Okay. So the ideal is he grabs you and comes in for a seonage to throw you. Okay. And as he moves in to do that, you shift and he gets slammed into the ground. Okay. But then each of the waza have him at a different point in the throw and you at a different point in the throw. So what it's pointing out is that there are 3 or 4 stages, points in time that you might pick up on what's going on and have the wherewithal to be able to move. So each one shows you how to counter this seoinage, but at different points in the throw. Because if he caught you by surprise and you're already going up, you got to do something different because you can't steer in space and make him fall down. If you're already on his back, you got to do something different because the previous one's not going to work. His body's in a different position, yours in that kind of thing, right? So again, the kata on an omote level is showing what the receiver is doing to respond and neutralize and end that fight. But the ura, one hidden aspect of this is if you, in that instance, were called the uke, I'll frame that in just a minute, okay? You threw something and he started doing all this stuff, you would have to try your best to neutralize, evade, counter any or all of those moves to render that technique ineffective. Okay? So the point here at number 10 is what if you're the good guy? What if you're the good guy? Of course we are, right? You're the good guy and you're the one punching or kicking or grabbing or whatever, okay? So let's put this into context. Again, this is where the focus is today. All right? This is the Ura that I want to talk about. Okay? So we're answering the question, what if we're the one who threw that initial attack in this particular sequence, right? What I'm pointing to is we may have already defended. He may have started the fight, right? We may have already defended against something, and as a part of our counter to what he threw, we're now coming in. In the case of Ichimonji no Kata, we're coming in with that ski to knock him back or down. And he does that. Does that mean that because he caught my ski and because I'm the uke, I'm supposed to lose? Friggin' hope not. I hope not, right? So here's the premise. The premise is both people are training. At a certain point, we can assume the guy throwing the punch is the bad guy. He's the enemy. He's from the other clan, whatever, okay? And I'm doing my thing to take him out of the equation, right? But the reality is that in a battle, I don't care if it's a war, a fight for the girl in a bar on a Saturday night or whatever, is both fighters think they're right, think they're justified, right, and think they're the good guy. Right? And I know we've got evil people in the world or whatever, but it's a slim percentage of these people who actually believe that they're evil and just want to see the world burn. Right? Less than 10%. Anytime there's a battle, both people are not just trying to be right, and they're not just trying to win, they've already assumed the position of being right. That's why there's a fucking argument. That's why there's a fight. Okay? If we study conflict and what causes conflict, that's at the root of it. Okay? So we have to jump off of this, right? So there is a black belt training perspective. Again, I inherited this from several teachers because of that transition when we switched from Omote to Ura. Okay? There's a black belt training perspective. Right? And it begins and ends with we have to drop the definition, or we have to drop the belief, right, or the assumption that the defender equals the good guy and the attacker equals the bad guy. Might be true, might not be true. Okay, but we have to get over this because the black belt perspective is that the person throwing any given thing, the person applying onikodaki, the person applying mushadori, ganseki nage, ichimonji no kata, whatever, the person throwing that omote shuto to that neck to disconnect shit and make this guy's body turn off, okay? In that moment, they're the attacker. That doesn't make them the bad guy. It means they're sending something at that person to shut him down and force that guy to have to do something to save himself. Okay? The person who's receiving an incoming attack, having onikodaki applied, having jumonji no kata applied, whatever, right? In that instant is the defender. But that doesn't make him the good guy. Okay? We need to neutralize good guy, bad guy. Right? And there's three reasons I'm going to give you for this, right? That I picked up along the way from teachers, and again, by studying conflict and studying what's really being taught. Yeah, and again, I'm not going to tell you that you have to get your head wrapped around this thing. This is just, these are insights that I came up with and that teachers had shared based on piercing this veil that limits most people to being like mere martial artists or self-defense practitioners. Okay? So the first, and I think the biggest reason that people hold on to this, okay, is that it comes from a position of egocentric, like having a moral high ground. Okay? Of course I'm the good guy. One, I didn't start it. Maybe you did. Maybe you flipped him off or whatever. Yeah, but I didn't punch him. That doesn't mean you didn't start. It doesn't mean I'm going to neutralize that. Doesn't mean that I didn't start it. If I rolled my eyes or whatever, because some people in the world have not learned the lessons that, you know, just because somebody rolls their eyes at you or uses a word or whatever, doesn't mean you need to like jack them in the throat. Okay? So, but have you seen the shit that we're learning to do to human bodies? I don't, it's not that I don't know anyone. There is a small percentage of people in the world outside of our training. And this goes for most martial arts as well, because most people start in a martial art and learn all these skills and whatnot, but then they tend to lean into their favorites. And at the other end, they come out with a punch or two that they use all the time, or a kick or two that they use all the time, which from a ninja's perspective makes people easy to read, right? But they don't do stuff nearly like us. I know they're trying to stab us, shoot us, and all that kind of stuff, but we're not just breaking things on a body, we're like dislocating it, leaving it freaking hang, all kinds of stuff, right? Shutting things down. It's not just trading shots to win a belt or a trophy or get bragging rights on Saturday night. The shit that we do and that we're learning to do to another human body, the moral high ground, really? Because I should be doing what he's doing or less. I should be trying to restrain it. You know what I'm saying? Okay? But we want to assume, right, that because I'm the good guy, I get to do all this brutal shit to him because, well, I wouldn't be doing it if he didn't, you know, try to punch me in the face. Okay? Anyway, right? So another reason that we want to drop this is that it distracts us, it distracts us from the reality of a fight, right? It's a distraction, okay? I'm just going to stop at this because this is the problem that most people have when they get into fights or arguments or whatever, okay? They're distracted from reality, okay? So what is that? What is that reality? The reality is he who does the most things right at the right time, I said this earlier, and doesn't make as many mistakes or has fewer wrong things at the wrong time, universal justice says they're going to win. So no matter what kind of ego trip we're on, moral high ground, I'm a blah, whatever, okay? It all comes down to we're easy to kill, right? So if we walk in there overconfident, we walk in there thinking I got this and, you know, whatever, right? That's Mr. Say wrote an article about this, and it's on the internet. You can look it up. Pride goes before the fall. And it's actually named after an old saying, but he points out some of this stuff, right? And the third reason for dropping this is that we recognize that the uke and the tori, that those terms are not equal to good guy, bad guy, okay? So again, just like this, right? Uke, right, is not equal to bad guy. And tori is not equal to good guy. It doesn't mean that they're not. But these are two combatants. And so in the advanced levels, we just recognize that whoever's throwing something, delivering something, trying to break his body or whatever, is the attacker in that moment, right? The problem is that from childhood, we've applied labels to things. Attacker, bad guy. Defender, good guy, right? No, the person responding to something is the defender. Trying to not get hurt, they're defending, right? When I was a cop, every time I pulled two guys apart that were fighting, both of them said, oh, I wasn't fighting, I was just trying to protect myself. I was just defending myself. Yeah, I understand, right? But you were also trying to punch his teeth down his throat as well. And there's a huge difference between a fight and a self-defense situation. Okay? And it's not a fine line. Okay? Not a fine line. Okay? But everybody says, just trying to protect myself. I was the defender, man. Okay? Maybe you were, maybe you weren't, but we're going to need to collect some evidence. And the first thing I'm going to look at are your hands. Because fending actions put very different red marks and abrasions and whatnot on the hands, and attacking things put other ones. Okay? So another reason why we have as many fists as we have, not just because they match targets, but they might match a situation where you might have a problem with legal issues. Okay? So, all right. So again, the uke is the one throwing the attack. The tori is the one responding or defending to the attack that's coming in. Right? But this fight, it could have been going on for 2-3 minutes. Whoever happens to be throwing this or kicking or whatever, right? They're the attacker. Okay. So we can do this with any kata. Okay. Again, today we're going to take a look at ichimonji no kata. Just one of the Kihon. My guy, I'm going to be out of town this weekend, taking the family away for a little thing. And so Shidoshi Whistler, some of you guys that have done some of the Friday classes, you know who he is, or you've been in some of these things. Really good guy, 6-degree black belt, really knows his stuff. So he's covering class for me, and so he's going to be doing the class that kind of leaps off of this, right? But we have to cover several things here, okay? And I'm running short on time. So anyway, again, I'm only going to focus on one because it's just easier. It's just, I don't have the time, okay? But you can replace Ichimonji no kata with anything. At this point, I do not know. He's going to be focusing on Kihon Happo, the ones that most people know during the Friday class. But in a 75 to 90 minute class, I don't know that he's going to be able to cover this principle with more than maybe 3. I don't know. Okay, but either way, the whole idea is those classes now give you form to the lesson. Right, the lesson's invisible. The lesson is, right, you gotta get your head wrapped around it. So we show you physical examples as to how that works. The problem is that for a lot of people, they look at the physical example and they think that's the lesson. No, the physical example is what the lesson looks like. Again, I'm speaking at a senior black belt level, not the new for the new person. Right? Oh, okay, yeah, that's a lesson. Yeah, that's a lesson. Yeah, I get it. Okay, but right, at a certain point, we have to let go of the models, and everybody wants to do it too soon. But you let go of the models because you recognize that the models are an example of what the principles and concepts look like, just like our lives, our relationships, our job and success in that realm, or our finances or whatever, are all reflections. It's a mirror showing us the results of how much we know and how well we can apply the principles and concepts that govern interpersonal relationships, work ethic and accomplishment, being able to stay on task to accomplish goals, financial knowledge and education, right? Those kind of things, right? So we like to blame the rest of the world, but right, one of the things I learned early on and was willing to accept is that we all have responsibility for the outcome, right? And that means that, right, back to Shirai Sensei's lesson, good actions do, good decisions make, good situations make. Bad actions do, bad decisions make, bad situations make, right? But ego doesn't like that. Ego wants to make it somebody else's fault, and ego's going to have a hard time dropping this too, okay? Because ego always needs to be the good guy, right? Anyway, all right, so here's what we're going to do, right? We're going to break down Ichimonji no kata into 5 parts, okay? And this doesn't have, they're related too, but it doesn't have anything to do with the moves themselves. Related, but I'm not laying out like he punches and you do this, and then you do whatever, okay? Because ego tends to oversimplify things, right? So we're going to break it down into, again, the perspective that I believe that an upper level black belt should have to be able to flip this and understand how to beat all of our techniques. See that, man, that really starts to freak people out, right? My shit shouldn't be beatable, man. I'm not spending all this money to be learning something that somebody can break. Well, you better be able to break it if somebody took some classes in the Bujinkan and tries to whip a freaking Ganseki or an Ichimonji no kata or whatever on you, then what? Right? Well, I guess I'm supposed to die because I was the uke and he's doing the technique. Right? Anyway, all right, so let's break down the kata, right? So phase 1 in Ichimonji no kata, pretty much the same in most of them, right, is receiving the tsugi, right? That straight on shot that's coming in, right? Yeah. want to make sure I have my words right, in kamae. Okay, please note that I'm not talking about the uke nagash. You'll see when I get over here to beating it, that how we define this creates the opportunity or creates an opportunity lost. Okay, so we're receiving the tsuki in kamae, and how that kamae is positioned relative to him makes all the freaking difference in the world. Okay, but that's on the omote side. Let's stay on the uda side. Right. Number two. Okay, the application of the uke nagash. Okay, receiving that arm. What does an uke nagash do? All right, well, it depends. We say uke nagash, but there's actually three types of uke uchigata, right? There's nagash, there's dome, and there is one other one, but this is a flow, one is a stop, those kind of things. We just say the same thing, right? So we are neutralizing the force of that attack and putting ourselves into a position where we can now take control of his body through that punching limb. It's not just a block. Okay? If it were a block, we call it ukedome. Okay? A receiving stop. Okay? So there's a flow implied in this. Yeah. Next, kuzushi with footwork. Bless you. Right? Kuzushi always sounds to me like somebody sneezing. Kuzushi, balance breaking. Okay. With what I have in here, with footwork. Okay. It's once we receive the arm, right? We're shifting back in, but we have control of their arm and we're moving it to control their body. We're using omote gyaku principle, right? Not omote gyaku, the physical technique. Okay. So we're entering, we're breaking their balance, so it's easy to enter to do the finish, but we're doing it in a way where even if they could get a shot off, they can't reach us. Okay. So again, good tai sabaki, that kind of stuff, right? Part 4 is the omote shito to uko. Omote shuto ni uko. Uko is this point right here. Okay. It's a kill shot. Right. Be nice to your partners. Okay. You're hitting the carotid artery, you're hitting the jugular vein, you're hitting the vagus nerve, which keeps your heart pumping, you're hitting the phrenic nerve, which keeps your diaphragm going, which means you'll be breathing. You are going to either break off transverse processes in the vertebrae right there, or you're going to take the vertebrae, which of course have the spinal cord running down from the brain through it, and you're going to do that. Yeah, just clip things, right? So this is why the master teachers are like, you don't have to do techniques hard and fast. One, they hurt all by themselves if you do them correctly, even slowly. Two, practicing martial arts in most places is legal, right? But doing it with the intent to damage your partner is illegal because now it's assault, and that's, at least where I live, that's involuntary manslaughter, and that's third-degree murder, okay? So be careful, all right? And then the fifth one is a repositioning. Repositioning aligned with them, right? With where they ended up, okay? So where they end up, okay? So seems simple, right? Okay, we're going to receive the tsuki in kamae, right? We're going to do uke nagash, so we neutralize the force of the attack, they miss us, and we start the process of kuzushi, right? We continue that with our footwork to put them into a position where, one, they can't go on the way they wanted to. Their body starts to resist gravity, not us, right? And that allows us free entry right to the target. So we deliver the omote shito to uko, disconnect things, or we cause them to stumble, they drop into a roll, whatever, but I deliver that, and I end up pointing at them in kamae, right? Because what if he knows what I know? What if he's just naturally gymnastic? What if my shot wasn't all that great because of the stress I'm under and whatnot, okay? Or it's wintertime. Where I am, people are in freaking parkas and gloves and all that, and I forget, shit, I'm wearing snow gloves, and I deliver, I do an ichimoto no kata, and I thump him on the neck, and he's got a scarf, and I've got gloves, so it moves him, but doesn't do 90% of what barehanded whatever would do. Okay, so it seems simple, right? But it's not going to be. What if we're this guy over here, right? What if we're responding to something that he threw at us? I do whatever, and then I neutralize it, and I come right back in there. Maybe it's a shikan ken to the throat or whatever, because ski doesn't tell you what fist is being used, nothing, okay? And he catches me with this technique, okay? Any technique, okay? Again, this is just an example, but now what, right? So now we have 5 opportunities to counter or escape from or even stop any one of these things from happening that will render his technique impotent, right? It just kind of finishes. Doesn't mean he's not going to keep throwing shit at you, but from an omote standpoint, what I learn is a step-by-step first. Then behind the step-by-step, I learn what the hell I'm doing with those steps, all the way up to just being really, really good, so that 8, 9 out of 10 times, my technique is right. I don't need henka, okay? Because especially against an uke, I shouldn't need henka against an uke, right? When my partner turns into a teki, where he's resisting and countering, yeah, now I need to adjust. Now I might need henka and all that kind of stuff, right? Because remember, this is going to play back and forth. I'm going to show you these, but a whole other lesson down the road is he has this and he's able to beat Ichimon's no kata. So now when I'm doing Ichimon's no kata, I need to button these things up to make it harder for him to do these things. What are these things? Thanks for asking. I appreciate it. Right? So, number 1, right? What are we doing? Right? I'm going to ask how-to questions. Right? Because again, this is strategy and tactics, and upper level people, these are the questions to ask. Questions produce enlightenment. Answers don't. Answers are everywhere. Ego wants to just get an answer for something, and usually when somebody asks a question and they get an answer, they go away happy. They'll forget about it very, very soon because they have something they can just regurgitate back and sound smart. Okay? You go through the process of asking questions, why and how and all those kind of things. Now you understand, right? So if somebody tries to come with you with bullshit that counters that because they just have a different opinion, it's not going to be effective. But if we're battling one opinion over another, that's how fights start. Okay? So anyway, all right. So how do I beat this guy's receiving me in? Receiving the ski, my attack, right? This is what's going on, okay? So if he is an upper level practitioner with good skill proficiency in the use of his kamae, he's going to take up a kamae, this one, whatever, where his limbs, there's an opening that's there, but his limbs are positioned to make it really easy to do that. If our position is off, it makes it harder and harder to do this. So if this guy's really buttoned up, the question here is, how do we improve our attacks, or how do we deliver that attack so he can't counter him, right? How do we attack better? If he can counter your attack, it wasn't that great. Or he's really freaking good, okay? Because there's upper levels. Every time we do something, we're assessing his skill level, okay? So, uke nagashi, right? What's he doing? He's evaded, right? And he's already has contact. He's already, maybe if he's done a hard one, right? He's already started to move me. Shoulders being affected. That's catching the spine. That's affecting the feet. All kinds of shit, right? So next one is, how do we neutralize or ride off? How do we neutralize or ride off the uke nagashi? Okay. So we have a drill. Man, I learned a long time ago. There's a waza. I don't know that it's a kata, but it's in a lot of kata. It's called ken nagare, flowing punch. And so what you're using is this koto togakure, you use circular counter strike to knock that arm away, create an opening, right? What you're doing is hitting and coming right back into the ribs. So we have an exercise drill where my partner throws one, I counter, and I go in for his ribs. And so if I'm the guy that threw it and he knocks this out of the way and then he comes in for my ribs, I'm actually going to rock back and counter that one and come into his ribs. And we're just going back and forth. But the lesson isn't about me hitting his arm and that. It's how to disengage my shoulder, because when he hits this, that's what he's affecting. He's affecting the shoulder through the humerus, the head of the humerus, it up against the limit of the AC joint, right? The end of the scapula right here, and it's the skeleton is stuck. And when at the moment it gets stuck, it now affects my spine, and my legs will start to lock down to not fall over. Okay? So that's what allows him to punch me here. So if I throw this, at the moment he hits it, I disengage it, my arm will just swing in a circle. Okay? If I do it too soon, that's not right. If I do it too late, well, he gets me. Okay? But what I want to learn how to do is go from locking down to make impact to disengaging this, so when that punch comes in, I can shift to recounter it, or to counter his, right? So we end up countering the counter. We just play this thing back and forth, right? But it might be that he got it, hit it, and he's coming in. I couldn't disengage, and so I use my footwork to do it, or I use my angling to do it, or I change kamae, or whatever, because this is being thrown, so we just shift to a different position. And we learn how to ride off not just his attacks, but we learn how to ride off our own bodies in balance, right? Okay, so now we're down here at the kazoosh. Maybe we missed these. Missed that one, and now he's carrying my arm to move in to clock me. Hasn't clocked me yet. He's just controlling this arm, right? So now, how do we counter the kazushi? Right? How do we counter? And again, we're going to learn a way based on the way the kata is being done, but ultimately the skill level is whatever kata we're working with. How many different kinds of balance breaking is there? How many different follow-up strikes or kicks or manipulations or whatever are there? Okay, so this stuff it's not an avoid, although it seems like that in the beginning, right? And then he comes in to do this omote shito, okay, to this uko. So the question here is, how do we block it? How do we evade it? Or how do we do our own uke nagash against that incoming shito, right? So again, how do we block, evade? I'm just going to write uke in here, uke nagash, right? How do we neutralize it, okay? Because if we miss this opportunity, right, I didn't throw something that jammed up his kamae in a way that he couldn't do good uke nagash. He ends up doing uke nagash because, right, now I've got to ride this off. But if I couldn't do that, now he's already manipulating my body. So I got this. If I couldn't do that, I'm already here, and here comes that shito. Shit, right? But we've already, by this stage of training, you're loaded up with so many skills. As long as you're not one of these people that go, I don't like rolling, I don't like break falls, I don't like that one, I don't think that one's necessary. Well, then they're not going to have the right tools in the toolbox or enough options to be able to counter that thing. Okay? And people think that they have choice. Right? You do have choice, right? As my teachers have always taught, you're a grown-up. You can do whatever you want. Okay? The problem is that so's a bad guy. Okay? And since we don't know what the attack is like, what it's going to look like, how many of them there are, where we're going to be, we don't know what skills we're going to need. So you load up your toolbox, okay, to increase your chances of having the right thing at the right time. Anyway, but what if he hits me with the uko, or the hits me? Bang, okay? I've got one more opportunity, right? And that is, how do I receive and neutralize that shot? Okay? In the traditional model that I learned from Manaka sensei, trained with him a little bit as he was making the transition from Bujinkan to creating the Jininkan, but there was a model for Ichimonji no Kata that we had, and we started off, we didn't start off street, we started off classically. That means that I'm starting off in Ichimonji no Kamae, but so's my partner. And he's throwing ski from this Ichimonji no Kamae, right? So he's guarded, right? It's worst case scenario. because again, we don't need 1,000, 2,000-year-old secrets to defend against crap. So everything was buttoned up, okay? And so we got all the way to the end, right? So we learned to catch him, neutralize, and we come in and we strike, but we weren't striking uko. We were striking closer to this chidome back here, this point here. So we're going past the neck and hooking back in, and we're striking through Jumonji to an Ichimonji. I'm striking, and he's going to go off the outer edge, the little toe side of the foot, which means he doesn't get to do a forward shoulder roll the way he learned and is comfortable. He's going to go off to the side, and he has to recover from there, but he's going to come out in Ichimonji no Kamae facing me. So not only is he learning how to punch and what the rest of the technique is like, but the first lesson in the first model assumes we missed all of these, so this guy can practice all these, and the uke has to neutralize the kill shot and be back up off the ground, ready to go again. And then from that position, because I've done my thing, and now from here, since he punched me first, and he's in that position, now I'm going to ski, he gets to do it, I get to practice neutralizing the shot to the neck. This, my friends, is where Shidoshi Whistler will be focusing for this Friday's class. Okay, he is going to, again, couple of the Kihon. People are going to be practicing their ukemi, their taihen jutsu, whatnot. Some of it may be rolling, some of it may be just body shifting and evasion and all that. He's going to focus here because this is the place that, and it sounds odd, right? Because we walk through here. So let's beat that first. Let's beat the closer to zero we get, the harder it is, right? We start where, with the assumption he's better than us, right? So if everything fails, we're really good at this. Well, what if you're not? Well, then you die, okay? But we're really good at this, okay? Then once we're really good at receiving the technique, we're the damn uke, for God's sake, right? We're good at receiving it, then we can start to explore as it's coming in, right? He's caught me, I'm back here, right? And that shuto is coming in, right? So how do I neutralize that from the position I'm in, not do something wild and crazy and whatnot, something simple under pressure based on the way my body's being shoved. This is coming in. I can't move this leg. It's stuck. The other leg is stuck. But what I can do is fire my core muscles, because everybody wants to bring their shoulders back up over their hips. That doesn't work, right? Gravity's already pulling down on my upper body. 2/3 of my body is being controlled by gravity. So as he has me and that comes in, he already has this. So what I need to do is surrender this and come to inside of that. That's one way to do it. There's lots of others. But then we start backing up, okay, to handle these things. Again, it's an approach, right? If I just wasted 45 minutes of your time, I wasted time from a lot of people because they signed off early. And I know we went way over. So, but once I start a lesson, you get the lesson. Okay. So again, it's this last part that Sensei Whistler is going to be focusing on. And, so if this is something you normally do, the page is already set up at the moment, right? So you can go there, you can sign up, doors are open for it. Again, he's going to cover the class for me, but this is everything else that's behind it, okay? So remember that there are 3 ways that a teacher transmits a lesson. And I covered this in a Kuden a while back, okay? 3 ways that a teacher transmits a lesson. Unfortunately, in today's world, 90% of students only focus on one. They hear him talking, they nod, right? But it's not sinking in, right? So there's Taiden, which is with their body, they teach you how to move your body, okay? Cool, right? There's Kuden, or the seishin, right? It's the knowledge, it's the principles and concepts and science, right? Heiho, military science, right? All warriors learn this stuff. How it works, why it works, when you deploy it, all that kind of stuff, right? And then there's the shinden, the heart-to-heart transmission, right? Sometimes there's verbal lessons, but more often than not, you find it in the way they describe things, the topics they talk about, or just watching how they live their life. That's why I'm really, really happy that, Hatsumi Sensei accepted me as a student, and these other master teachers that accepted me as a student at different times. He hasn't always been the one-on-one guy, right? But the way they live their lives, they continue to live their lives. Right? They're not martial arts is my life kind of people. They're not, you know, what are you gonna do? Right? I'm gonna say whatever I want. What are you gonna do? Punch me? I'll kill you. They're not that kind of person, right? They live very, very professional, very, very classy, very, and that doesn't mean they have tons of money or anything like that, right? You don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to be rich to be freaking classy or to act high class. Okay? Hatsumi Sensei a long time ago said, for somebody to call you a ninja is to call you a true lady or gentleman. It's usually where he ends the lesson. It's our job to go, if I want to be a ninja, I should probably carry myself in a way that other people would see me in that light. Because if they see me as a lady or a gentleman, get the idea, but I'm speaking to the ladies too. If they see me that way, then they're not worried about any killer techniques that I have because I'm a genteel man. Not the same as a gentleman. Okay? The word gentleman came from genteel man, but a genteel man was not a gentleman. They know how to shoot, fence, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so anyway, so that's what I have, right, for this one. Hopefully it works for you. You know, even if you don't show up for the Friday class, this should give you plenty to work on. Okay, all right. So again, if you're looking for more, if you're way away from us, we're in East Central Pennsylvania. Then we've got our online Ninja Academy, got all kinds of online programs with that. And if you do live close, Sunbury, Pennsylvania, Central Susquehanna Valley, that kind of thing, then hop over to SealandsGroveMartialArts.com. I know it doesn't have a cool Japanese name, but you know what? 98.9% of my local community can't even pronounce it right, and most people aren't going to contact me if they can't say it right. So why would I only talk to a small percentage when I can help many, many more, right? So, and besides that, in a local area, people are going to type in either martial arts classes near me, self-defense classes near me, or martial arts or self-defense classes in the name of their town or the name of the biggest town. So search engine optimization, right? Something the modern ninja has if he's online, right? Matches things up so that when they type it in, Google goes, oh, I know who to send you to, because you don't have some funky name like, you know, Kim's Taekwondo or you know, Goku some of this Dojo, whatever. Okay, I know it strokes our egos, but when I realized that my job as a teacher was to speak the listen of my students to help them get from point A to point Z faster than I did, I changed everything I did. Once they come in, then they can learn that the Japanese name of this school is the Bujinkan Mori no Tora Dojo. Great, right? But to find it, people in my area can't even freaking speak English well, let alone Japanese, right? Butcher the shit out of that stuff. So I'm not throwing people out. But anyway, so onlineninjaacademy.com, I know, it's every once in a while it attracts cheese balls, but anyway. So if you're long distance, or if you're close and your work schedule or whatever doesn't allow for it, these are the online correspondence courses kind of thing, right? And then if you can actually make it to the academy or come in for our camps, right? We have a fall camp coming up here November 8th to the 10th of November 2024. So if you're after that watching this, ignore that, okay? And the theme for this year's camp is body, mind, spirit integration. There's a live option and there's also a virtual option. And yes, I have people that sign up for it and are on virtual the entire weekend. Okay, so that's it. That's what I have. Hopefully this all works out for you. I'm sorry that I'll miss you on Friday for the Friday coaching call or the Friday virtual training, but I will see you next week on the next episode of Warriors Whiteboard.